What I'd like to say is this. I am so pleased to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Sara Steinberg, no relation to the earlier speaking Dr. Jennifer Steinberg. Sara has been the assistant director of our group practice cognitive behavioral consultants in Westchester and White Plains here now, and she is the mastermind behind the whole operation. But in addition to her great operation skills, she's also a very talented DBT therapist, and she's also a very talented graduate group leader, and she's also been doing a lot of consulting to some of the local schools. I know she has a fan club in the back of several schools. So yes, there's a lot of love in the room for Sara. So without further ado, I'm going to have Sara come up and speak about what we're going to do once they get through the initial phase of DBT. Come on up.
How's the volume? Okay. As Alex said earlier, DBT graduate groups are the highlight of my week as well. And these teens constantly challenge and inspire me. So I'm very excited to talk to you this afternoon about DBT graduate groups, teens helping teens maintain gains. I'd like to start off with a quote from a current group member. Grad group has helped me keep my life balanced after the skills group. It reminds me of my skills and how to use them in my everyday life. Getting constructive feedback from the group on my dilemmas and how to work them out effectively has kept me happy and overall less anxious and more effective when dealing with any issue that might come up. So on that note, I'd like to start out by explaining in order to understand why an adolescent graduate group is so beneficial, it's important to first understand the struggles of adolescents with borderline personality disorder. Developmentally, adolescents struggle with managing emotions in peer relationships. Adolescents with BPD or features of BPD are even more prone to feelings of alienation, loneliness, feeling invalidated, and as a result, to have even more difficulty managing their emotions in peer relationships. So a group that is attuned to helping these adolescents manage their emotions effectively, while also providing the structure to navigate peer relationships is ideal. Group therapy is a particularly powerful therapeutic tool with this age group, since peer relationships can promote the development of social skills and identity formation. Positive peer relations can also foster improved self-esteem, provide buffers from stress, and help develop adaptive use of school and family. As Alex alluded to earlier, adolescents with BPD, one of the theories behind this is the biosocial theory. So I'm not going to go into too much detail since this has already been explained, but the biological vulnerability piece is that adolescents with BPD, or features of BPD, struggle with being particularly sensitive, reactive, and a slow return to an emotional baseline, meaning they might get more upset more easily than their peers, they might react more intensely, and it might take them longer to come back down. This interacts with an invalidating environment, which, as we know, can be peers, family, teachers, therapists, thus resulting in many of the emotional and behavioral patterns that adolescents with BPD have. So putting these teens in a room together that sometimes is an invalidating environment, like grad group, challenges them to use their skills and gives them experience for coping with invalidation outside of the group. One might wonder, why is a group needed? Why not just continue with individual therapy after the skills group? Adolescents who have a history of emotional vulnerability and invalidation need a safe environment to apply skills with peers that they can relate to. In the graduate group, adolescents develop trust among their peers, learn to assert themselves, and practice positive reinforcement and validation. In the multifamily skills group, the teens acquire the skills. In the grad group, they practice skills strengthening and skills generalization with live and video practice. So the goal for the skills group is for the skills practice within the group to generalize to relationships and situations outside of the group. Adolescents having an opportunity to practice applying these skills with their peers and to get feedback is invaluable. Research suggests high rates of relapse among depressed adolescents. Clinically, a continuation phase of treatment just makes sense. Grad group can co-occur with individual therapy or can serve as the primary modality of treatment. Sometimes grad groups can be a step down as someone decreases frequency of individual therapy or stops completely. If a teen has accomplished her goals with her individual therapist, but has goals that she could and would like to work on in a grad group, such as interpersonal goals, then that would be one situation in which it might make sense for grad groups to be the primary modality. These are decisions that are made collaboratively with the teen, the parents, the group leader, the individual therapist, and of course the consultation team. So now I'd like to move on and talk about the eligibility for a graduate group. Teens must be free of self-harm or suicidal behavior. In our program, we say that they must be free of these behaviors for 2 months, for a minimum of 2 months, and we're flexible based on the individual. And again, this is a decision that would be based on the needs of the individual in collaboration with the group leader, the therapist, and the consultation team. Clear identification and commitment to goals is needed, and commitment to fully participating in the grad group by providing and receiving feedback, applying skills, and motivation to make wise mind choices. We typically suggest having new members have a commitment session with the group leader to discuss life goals, and specifically what goals the teen wants to work on in the group. For example, a teen might commit to working on being more assertive with her friends and boyfriends, decreasing avoidance behavior when anxious, and applying skills when angry, rather than acting impulsive. So the target hierarchy for a graduate group. As you can see here, life-threatening behaviors or target ones are not listed here because we'd like the teens to be free of them. So the next target would be decreasing therapy interfering behaviors. This could be anything from coming late, persistent absences, not participating in group, judgments, invalidation. As those come up, we absolutely want to address them. We want to increase interpersonal effectiveness skills, and we want to increase behaviors instrumental to a positive quality of life, while decreasing behaviors interfering with the positive quality of life. Meaning we want to increase and reinforce skillful choices related to family and peer relationships, drugs, alcohol, sex, school, etc. The goal is to focus on building a life worth living, and specifically focusing on behaviors for each teen that are going to help her with her goals. Within the group, we particularly emphasize the give skills, that gentle, easy manner that some people have referred to, validation, giving positive reinforcement. For example, this week in my group, one of the teens said that she had a crush on her personal trainer. And she said, I know this is not appropriate, and I don't want to get him in trouble, but I like him, and I want your help, she said to her peers, I want your help making an emotion-mind choice, is what she said. She said, I want to pursue him because I want that experience. You guys have had emotion-mind sexual stuff. I haven't. Help me do that. So her peers tried very skillfully to get her to reshape her question and her goal so that they could give her skillful advice. And the teen got a little frustrated and was sticking to her guns about what she wanted help with. And so at one point, one of her peers said, oh, fuck. And so the teen who was originally asking for help said, I feel judged, understandably. And so we stopped talking about the original topic, and we addressed what was going on in the group. So I said to the teen who had made the exasperated cursing, I asked her if she could reframe what she just said and say it again using cursive prescribed skills. And I asked the teen who said she felt judged to explain why she felt judged. And they had a much more helpful interaction. And in the end, they were all able to be dialectical and help the teen with the topic that she wanted help with. So this addressed all of these situations here because there's the therapy interfering behavior that needed to be addressed in terms of the invalidation and the interpersonal effectiveness skills. So the graduate group format, and I'm going to go over each of these points individually. So depending on how many members you have, the group is going to be from 1.5 hours to 2 hours. You're going to have 10 minutes for mindfulness practice, 20 minutes for check-in virtual diary card review, and 15 minutes for skill review, an optional break. And then the bulk of the group is going to be the consultation and problem solving. And then at the end, you're going to do closing observations and commitment. So to start with, you're going to do a mindfulness activity each group. But you as the group leader is not going to necessarily do it each week. You're going to be one of the people who's going to be leading a mindfulness activity. And all the group members are going to alternate leading the activities. And observations are shared similar to the skills group, And there's an opportunity to practice the what and how skills, meaning helping the adolescents be effective and get to wise minds. The adolescents leading mindfulness activities is beneficial for several reasons. They have the opportunity to be creative in developing their mindfulness activities. The teens practice being the leader, which can increase a sense of mastery and self-esteem. And the more they teach, the more they're likely to employ the mindfulness skills when outside of the group. Then we go on to the check-in virtual diary card section. This is a semi-structured assessment of targets. Group members are asked to use their mindfulness skills to reflect on their week and give an average rating for specific behaviors and emotions. The group leader goes around and spends about 5 minutes assessing each individual's targets. This is tailored to each individual. For example, one of my group members is tracking anxiety, anger, urges and actions to act on anger, and frustration tolerance. Another group member is tracking depression, anxiety, urges and actions to avoid when anxious. All members are going to give a positive emotion and an example. And all group members also report on skills used in the past week with an example of one skill and check in about homework from the previous week. Medication compliance is also sometimes tracked. When deciding what to track, it's also taken into consideration if the team is currently in individual therapy and what they're tracking on their target, what targets they're tracking on their diary card with their therapist. And also when deciding what to track, this is a collaborative process between the group leader and the individual, and also sometimes other group members. For example, I have one teen who is struggling with marijuana abuse. She's not so interested in tracking that, and her peers are really pushing her to track that. So we're trying to find a middle path. Then we're going to go on to a skill review. Group members are asked which DBT skill they would like to review. The group leader asks for a volunteer to teach that skill, review it, and real-life examples are used to reinforce the skill. And the group leader certainly can jump in and help the teens teach. Having a group member teach helps them strengthen the skill for themselves and fosters a more active role for the entire group. Group leaders might suggest a skill that could be more useful given some of the recent problems or targets that have come up in group. For example, if the teens have been discussing difficulty accepting situations they cannot change, then radical acceptance might be helpful to review. This week, the teens acknowledged that they were struggling with identifying and working on their long-term goals, so that's the skill we chose to review. Then we go on to the bulk of the group, which is the consultation and problem-solving section. This, in many ways, is the most important component of the group. The adolescents are asked to identify a topic that they want help with, related to their long-term goals, and asked what they want help with. And so they're really encouraged at the beginning to not just start going into detail about the problem, but to be very clear, here's the problem and I'd like problem-solving help, or here's the problem and I really need some validation. Group leaders facilitate role plays, thinking dialectically, and problem-solving within the group. Adolescents employ interpersonal effectiveness skills while also using validation and positive reinforcement with each other. One important goal is to allow the teens to provide feedback and skill suggestions for each other. It can be difficult for the group leader to balance when to jump in and make a suggestion versus letting the teens navigate the conversation, especially if you as a therapist tend to be somewhat controlling. For example, when one teen or when the group is being very validating and not providing skill suggestions for the member asking for help, I might say, great use of validation, and I wonder what skills she could use to help her with this problem. And then I try to facilitate more of a problem-solving discussion. So just to go through these last 3 bullet points with an example. A couple weeks ago, one of the teens said that she'd applied for a job, but she was really anxious that her mom wasn't going to let her accept the job. So that was the topic that she identified. She said she wanted to talk to her mom about the job, and that's what she wanted help with. So another teen said, well, you need to dear man her clearly. That was just a given. And so then we did a role play. We wrote the dear man out on the dry erase board, and the teen took a photo of the dear man on the dry erase board with her smartphone. I gave them notebooks, but they used it for their phones, so that she had that for her homework. So the teen who was asking for the help played herself. One of the other teens played her mom, And they did a great role play, and they discussed challenges that would come up. And so in doing this, they employed their interpersonal effectiveness skills because they were reinforcing each other, and they were practicing using the give skills, using Dear Man, and using validation and positive reinforcement. One task is deciding what order the teens will get consultation. Some teens tend to always volunteer to go first, while others tend to put themselves last and then do not get as much time. Ideally, you want to spend about 15 minutes, about the same amount of time on each person. That can be difficult. I try to balance helping the teens think about how high of a priority their agenda items are, while also encouraging the teens who typically volunteer first to allow others to go first and vice versa. In addition, group leaders want to reinforce adolescents' progress, positive events, and effective use of behavioral skills by spending time discussing these in addition to problematic behaviors. So if a teen comes in with a crisis, she might go first. If a different teen comes in with, I got a job this week and I'm really proud, and I want to talk about that, she might go first. So we want to reinforce both. Then, at the end of the group, we'll spend about 5 minutes doing closing observations and commitment. Everyone shared brief observations about the group. For example, this was a difficult group for me because I felt myself shutting down and had to fight the urge and use opposite action to get help on my topic. Or, I thought this was a good group and we all talked about important topics. I felt helpful in giving feedback and I'm appreciative of the feedback I got. That's the observation section. Then each teen is going to give one self-validating statement. This could be related to the topic that they got help with that day, or just related to something on their mind. This is crucial because it helps to strengthen and generalize self-validation. I deserve to have a good relationship with my mom. I deserve to not have a drug addiction, something like that. Then we ask the teens to come up with their own homework assignment, something that they're going to commit to practicing that week. Again, related to their long-term goals. So sometimes I jump in and give some help here, and sometimes the peers will jump in and give some help. So for the example that I gave before, that teen said that she was going to Dear Man her mom for her homework. Or it could be related to a long-term goal and maybe not necessarily related to something the teen talked about. I'm going to go to school every day this week, or I'm going to identify one self-validating statement to tell myself each night and write it down. Now I'd like to move on and talk briefly about some challenges that can come up in the graduate group. There's therapy interfering that can come up within the group, invalidating comments like I talked about earlier, shutting down, judgmental comments. This can be tricky because we really go to a lot of efforts to make sure that the teens are committed and want to be in the group. Sometimes it turns out that that's not exactly what happens. And so last year I had a group member who said that she was committed, and it turned out that she really was just doing the group because her experience was that her mom was making her. So in the group, she wasn't that participatory, she was looking down, and the other group members had a really hard time, and they gave her feedback on this. And they pretty much said, we really want you to be here, we hear you talking about things that are difficult, we want to help you, and we want your help, but if you don't want to be here, you shouldn't be here. And so they really tried to shape her. Can she look up more? Can her homework be to identify something she wants help with? So another therapy interfering behavior that can come up within the group could be when I have more senior members and then newer members come. A lot of times the senior members tend to be judgmental or have judgmental thoughts towards the newer members, and that's something that they need to work on. A more extreme example, a couple years ago, I had a group member show up drunk, like falling over, could not stand up, could not speak, drunk. And it was my individual patient, so I was kind of distressed. And so the group member said, we really want to make sure she's okay, and this is not acceptable behavior, and we deserve to have a group. So they said, she can pass out in the waiting room, we're going to have a group, and we'll make sure she's okay at the end, and we'll make sure she gets home safely. And that's what we did. And then, obviously, she had to come up with a very meaningful repair to the group, to her peers, to me, to the team, and we dealt with that. Thankfully, that has not happened since then. Then there's therapy interfering behavior that can happen outside of the group. For example, two members becoming romantically involved, which is against the rules. This has happened. Group members smoking weed together, which is, or any other problematic behavior. This has happened. Group members breaking another rule, which is that we want them to spend time together, but they all have to be invited. Sometimes that hasn't always happened. So when this happens, the group leaders really must do the dance of balancing acceptance and change, validation and problem solving, and really trying to decide, is this a behavior that, say, we might suspend group for and the teens really need to think about their commitment? Or is this a behavior that the teens need to work on what they're for? And really try to understand the function of the behavior. I'd like to end with some quotes, some more quotes from my current group members. And I'd like to say that when I told my current group that I was doing this talk, first they said, can we come? And I said, if your parents gave you permission to leave school, sure. And they were all thrilled to tell me their experience about group and put a lot of perfectionism on themselves to come up with the perfect quote and wanted to know if I was choosing the best one, and I said no, that I would use all their quotes. So, grad group is a judgment-free safe zone. It's a constructive, encouraging environment where I get peer and professional support. It teaches social skills without directly attempting to. Group has provided me with the opportunity to share my life with people my own age in similar situations. I've met some of the most remarkable people in group and have been able to deal with countless issues and apply my skills because of the advice and validation of my peers. Grad Group is a remarkable and wonderful program, and I'm honestly grateful every day for what I gained from it. I'm able to present an issue and get feedback and skill suggestions, which I'm able to apply to my life. Group has been a huge outlet for me in my progression through therapy. I find that I make unique connections with peers my own age who can relate to me in ways that many of my peers can't. Group is a safe environment where we get skill-focused advice from our fellow DBTers and get to all grow together. There are no judgments, and we all learn from each other's experiences. Everyone in grad group wants to be in group, so it's a really great place for us to all work on our skills and effectiveness in various situations. We each give and receive help, which sets a balance among group members and helps us connect on a very deep level. I really do love group and feel that it benefits me in so many ways, academically and interpersonally. The feedback I get is helpful and constructive, and I have multiple perspectives. And on that note, I also just want to say that, we're trying to expand grad groups. I think they're just wonderful. We have adolescent grad groups, and now we have a young adult grad group at CBCW. I know at Ardsley and Pleasantville they're starting grad groups in the school settings. So I really want to encourage you in your settings to think about a grad group for your teens, because it's a great program. Thank you.